This video is for the purpose of instructing someone on how to upload a sermon to SoundCloud with the end goal. So I've just placed the CD into my Mac's disk drive, and it will show up here because I've opened iTunes. It will prompt it to ask me, yes, would you like to import the CD, audio CD in your iTunes library? And it affirms that the CD is in there over here on the desktop as well. I would press yes if I hadn't already imported it. So after I pressed yes, then I wouldn't need the CD anymore. After it downloaded, you'll see the download time up here. So right after it downloads, you don't need the CD anymore. You press eject on the top right of your keyboard. So the CD is in there and the audio has been pulled. And now here is, under my recently added section of the iTunes, here's the sermon that I just ripped from the CD into iTunes. And so what I'm going to do next is I want to edit the sermon because I don't want the beginning or the end in there, so that the sermon can start right on time. So what I'm going to do is drag this out here. See how it makes that icon? So that's what's going to happen, is it's going to appear like that. I already dragged it off of here because it takes a while to drop it to the desktop since it's a 30-minute file. So next, what I want to do is edit it. So I'm going to drag it in here, and when you drag it in there, then the sound file appears. And you want the sound file to be at the very front of here, at measure 1. So let's see which part of the sermon I want to cut off. Today we are going to answer the question in our Courage series, who do you obey? Now there's a big space here. Let's say I didn't want to start the sermon until here. Now I'm going to start by asking you a question, because this whole section is just kind of an intro for the congregation. But the sermon could also start here. Now the problem is that it skips around, doesn't it? That's because this fader, in order to get closer to where you want to start it, you need to drag this to the right in order to get more precision. So let's say I want to start it right here, but I don't want anything to the left. What I'm going to do is press Command T. Command T. And while the file is highlighted, you must press Command T. It won't work if it's not highlighted. So I just divided the sound file, and now I can click on this left side, not this right side, but this left side, and then I press delete because I don't want that part of it. Next, I'm going to drag this back to where it was, and I'm going to drag the file back to the front because this is the new start. Now I'm going to start by asking you a question. Okay, so that's a good start. Now let's say I wanted to cut off some of the end of the sermon. Now here's a part from a previous sermon that I didn't delete. So I'm going to click that and delete it. But let's zoom in to the end of the sermon now. See if there is a part at the end that I may like to cut off. Sometimes it's hard to get right where you want it to go, but if you click right above it, then it'll expand from there. So let's hear the end, see if there's any parts that I want to cut off. But will you be obedient to God through those trials? So let's go into our time of reflection, and then we'll respond in worship together. So if I'm putting this sermon online, then that last part of the sermon doesn't necessarily apply to the listeners. So what I can do is, again, click the file, then Command T, what I can do is not click on this side, click on this side now because I want to delete that part of the sound file. Then press delete, and that's gone. So now it ends at a different place. Let's say you want to get a little more fancy and take out some more spaces, which sometimes I get nitpicky like that with my own sermons. Trials are gonna come your way. They're not gone. Let's say I want to cut out that space. So what I would do is Command T, and then Command T here, and then click in the middle, and press delete. Then I'm going to drag this file back. So let's see how it sounds. Trials are gonna come your way. They're not gone when you retire. They're not gone when you get out of college. The trials come. So that's a little more smooth, isn't it? So now that you have your sound file, what you're gonna do is go all the way over here so that you can see the whole file. So you have to go all the way to the left, just about. And then you have to drag this little highlighting ribbon. What you can do to create this ribbon, if you don't already have it, is you click anywhere and then just drag. Click anywhere along these numbers. So then you gotta drag it to the section of the sermon. This is at the beginning. Now you have to zoom in to find out the exact end that you want. So I'm going to drag this, try and get as precise as possible. So there it is. There's the exact end of the sermon. And so when you press share, now you can export. You do export song to disk. This isn't a song, but it's a sermon. But when you press export song to disk, then this menu will come up and it'll say save as this. I like to have it on the desktop just because I know that I'm going to upload it to SoundCloud. And what you want to do is have it on MP3, small file, and then high quality, and then name this whatever the sermon is. Who do you obey? And then write the date, 6-18-17. And then it doesn't really need any tags. I don't use those. I already know where it's going. What I want to do is do export. Oh, this is annoying. But there's this part underneath here. I'll just do a tag for now to get it out of the way, even though it's not letting me. Stupid thing. Okay, so what it says here, even though you can't entirely see it, it says export cycle area or length of selected regions. So this is my cycle region in which the MP3 is located. So when I do this, press export, then it's going to bring the file here, and it's going to look kind of like this. It's going to look like this, and then I'm going to go over here. Let's say this is the file I exported, and then I'm going to go to SoundCloud. I'm going to go to upload, and when I go to the upload section, then it'll give me the opportunity to drag this file into there. So I'm going to show an example of that. You drag this file, and it says drop your files here. That I will. And it's uploading right now. So what you want to do now, it already has the date here. That's awesome. It has the file name. And you want to write in genre, there is a religion and spirituality genre, which is certainly a sermon. And then you want to add tags according to the sermon title. So this would be, obey, obedience. I talk about Abraham in it, so I could say Abraham. I also talk about Isaac, It's also in the book of Genesis. And then for describe your track, what you should do is put for FSB Church of North Glen, and then put fsbcn.org so that people can go directly to the website. The good thing is it allows you to edit while it's uploading. See that it's uploading here? Once it gets to the halfway point, it's going to start processing. So it's going to be uploading and then it's going to be processing. You have to wait for both. And I don't have it linked up to the Facebook page directly, but I'm going to post it in Facebook here on the groups later. In the permissions section, see these different sections here? Go to the permissions section and press enable downloads. This will allow people to download the sermon for free, which they like to do. And then include an RSS feed. And this just allows more people to see the sermon, or hear the sermon, if you want to be more literal. So let's say I already uploaded everything. I would press save, and then it would appear with a URL, a sharing section. So I would copy that URL, and then I would post it in this Facebook group. So let's say this is the URL. It's not, but just for the sake of not waiting for the upload, let's say this is the URL for the sermon. So what I'm going to do is go into each of these groups and post the URL saying the sermon for this week on, and then say the title of the sermon, and then put in parentheses the date is now up. So it would look like this. So I already did this past week's, and this is what it ended up looking like. The sermon from this week on Who Do You Obey is now up, and then I put that date, and then it says how many people saw that. So, and then you'll also do that on the group page. This computer's pretty slow, but yeah, the group page and the page here. It shows up right on the group page, but on the public page, it doesn't show up after you do it, but it does post it. It'll show up on the side here. So there's a side portion here, or at least there used to be. But when you post something on this page, it's not going to show it directly on the page, but instead it's going to show up in your newsfeed and in the newsfeed of people who like the page. So don't be deceived. It still uploads it and all of that, posts it to the page if it's not a group. So please do both. And that's how you rip a sermon into iTunes, how you edit it in GarageBand, how you upload it to SoundCloud, and how you post it to Facebook for First Southern Baptist Church of North Glen. And what's cool about uploading it to SoundCloud is we have the SoundCloud stack for RapidWeaver. So when you go into the sermons section, you should see the sermon on the plugin. So it'll have a SoundCloud kind of playlist up there. And I won't bore you by waiting for this, but you'll see when you go. Here we go, finally. So here's SoundCloud player. It's loading. So it's pulling all of that info from SoundCloud since we uploaded it. And here it is. Here's Who Do You Obey. So you don't have to edit through RapidWeaver, which is down here. Instead, you can just upload directly to SoundCloud and it'll go to the website, which is pretty nice. You don't have to log in to the website and do all that kind of stuff. Get all that software. So here's the sermon, and this is the platform in which people will listen to the sermons for First Southern Baptist Church of Northglenn.